My name is Michael Rawlins. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Geosciences here at UMass Amherst, and I'm associate director of the Climate System Research Center here. My research focuses on Arctic environments. I'm interested in understanding uh, how water moves through the Arctic. When we think about warming of the Arctic, we also think about permafrost thaw. So much of the Arctic is covered in areas of permanently frozen ground. Um, and as we thaw that permanently frozen ground, there's a lot of carbon locked up in that frozen ground. So at the present time, the Arctic in general is a sink for carbon, meaning the Arctic absorbs more carbon than it emits. And that helps to put the brakes, if you will, on warming. Well, there's a potential that the Arctic may switch from a carbon sink to a carbon source in the next few decades. And that will basically enhance warming even more. The Arctic is no longer acting as a brake and slowing down warming. Then it will actually enhance warming, leading to further warming and permafrost thaw in these self-reinforcing cycles. So there are a number of implications for a warming Arctic that extend beyond the Arctic and that have implications for populations and climate around the world. So the science behind a warming climate, that's beyond a doubt. We know the climate's warming. We know humans are causing that. So now is the time to mitigate, reduce that amount of carbon, reduce our emissions. Some folks will argue that climate changes all the time, and that's true. On cycles of about every 100,000 years or so, the Earth goes into an ice age. And we understand why that is, and that's because of the way the Earth orbits around the Sun. There's slight changes in how our planet revolves around the Sun, our tilt that creates the seasons, the shape of the orbit. And those changes happen on very, very long time scales, tens of thousands, hundred thousands of years. The warming we're seeing over the past 100 to 200 years since the Industrial Revolution, this is driven solely by the burning of fossil fuels. Well, under scenarios where we maintain a business as usual scenario, so if we continue to rely on fossil fuels and don't take actions to mitigate our reliance on fossil fuels and our use of them, then we could potentially see warming by the end of this century, then approaching upwards of possibly 8 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. The world will be a completely different place. Given the amount of warming we've already seen and the amount of warming we're likely to see over the coming decades, sea level will continue to rise for many centuries. The Earth's ice cover, Greenland and Antarctica, will not come into balance with the amount of heat that the Earth has for many hundreds of years. So sea level is going to continue to rise relentlessly. We really need to start addressing this use of fossil fuels sooner rather than later if we want to keep sea level rise to feet and not, let's say, many feet or tens of feet, 20 or 30 feet sea level rise in a couple hundred years would be devastating to coastal communities around the world. But I'm hopeful that society will come together with the assistance and the leadership of governments around the world to really tackle this problem of carbon pollution and warming that's seriously threatening our civilization and the way we live our lives on this planet.